So my name is Kenji. I'm a product manager on Chrome. I work on making things load fast. And so this talk is sitting between like the lunch. It was supposed to be a talk that fits in 30 minutes, but I did it once with Yusuke at CDS, and we ran out of time. So I removed a couple of things, and then I was told that I actually have 40 minutes. So against like anyone's good advice, I put a few more things in it, and so I no longer know how long this is going to take. But hopefully you choose this track and you're going to be on lunch before the other track. We'll see how that goes. So this talks about new APIs that are coming. They might be behind the flag, they might be an origin trial, or they might be an origin trial soon. So look at this in terms of like what is coming next. And those APIs are designed to create experiences that are seamless, reliable, and instant. All right, on the web, we spend a lot of time waiting for things to load. And especially true if you compare to the kind of user experience you have on native apps. When you browse content on native apps, it tends to be more kind of like instant, seamless. You can't see that things are loading. But on the web, it's like very different, right? You can feel that, oh, this is different, like something is wrong. And there are many reasons for that. And the fact is, in India, it's actually worse on average. Like, there is 70% of the time being spent watching at the blank page that you saw in Jake's talk. And so that's not very useful, right? And so the main reason why this is happening, I think, is the way we tend to load websites. So let's take a look. On the web, if you click on the link, this is going to be the typical user experience that you will get to see. The browser is going to fetch the resource for this, like the successive navigation. And while it's doing that, it's going to show this blank page, right? And then you wait. And you are left wondering, is this going to work? Is this going to fail? Like today, you've seen how bad the Wi-Fi can be, right? Like I was trying to make a final like change to my slides and didn't work. And so this is very frustrating. And eventually, it's going to start to render. But most of the time, this is not the end of it, because there are elements that are coming on the page late, and they're going to push the things that are already rendered. And so if you were to try to use a page, typically, you will hit the wrong thing, right? And so that makes for a very frustrating user experience. So can't we do better? What if, for instance, we had the ability to do experience like what's on the screen? An experience where there is no wait time, an experience where there is no transitional state. You can see that everything is proceeding smoothly. You really feel like this is an app, right? It's not a bunch of pages. Okay, so let's take a look at the implementation option you have today at your disposal. You could start by saying, okay, I'm done with the web. I just want to go like native apps, right? And sure, you could do that and deliver a top-notch user experience. But the problem with that approach is that it's kind of like building an experience that only a subset of users need or want. I mean, installing an app is a lot to ask for most of your users, right? Whether it's about like the time it takes to get to the store and wait for the like 30 megabyte of native app to load, that's probably not going to work for everyone. And also, it's more commitment, because in terms of storage, it's more than just like a website, and you also have to agree to like permissions out of the gate, and so that's not going to work for everyone. So while you could still like consider building a native app for your most loyal users, if you really want to reach new users, you have to get you need a presence on the web, right? And so on the web, you have essentially two options. The first one is a multiple page app, or MPA, and the other one is a single page app, SPA. Let's take a look at SPA first. I'm not getting my speaker notes, so this is all like by heart. Hopefully it's going to work. So with an SPA, essentially, it kind of looks like building a high-rise. And the reason I say that is because you have to rebuild a ton of features that are provided by the browser, things like history, right? You have to manage your own state. Or scroll restoration. If the user goes back, you have to restore the scrolling position yourself. All of that is provided in the browser, except if you do an SPA, all of that is gone, right? The other thing that this does is that it is creating a lot of dependencies between all the different pieces of the app, because everything is monolithic, right? And so in terms of developer productivity, it's not a great story. Like, for instance, if I want to change something, I'm probably going to impact other teams because everyone is using the same code base, right? And then the other thing is, when this app grows, an SPA just like falls apart. Like the code begins to become like too complex, you have to load too much stuff, and so your solution in that case is to split it into different SPAs. And so you're back to square one because as soon as you navigate between different SPAs, you have the bad user experience that you saw just at the beginning of the talk. Okay, let's look at what MPA has to offer. So personally, I think going MPA is kind of like building a town because every team gets its own house, which maximize their productivity because they don't have to reinvent what the browser provide, right? And they can also more freely tweak their product. They can make change to their product without having to worry about what's going to happen for other pages. Okay, but MPAs are not without downsides, right? Overall, an MPA does result in higher friction user experience because everything is a navigation, right? If you want to go from that house to that other house, you have to take the car. Maybe if you don't have a car, you have to call Uber. It's like a navigation, right? It's not going to be a great user experience. And personally, I feel that the best kind of experience that we should aim for is one that is looked like this, like a seamless experience where if you tap on something, it reacts right out of the way. You have the sense that the app is there to help you get things done, right? This is an example that exists on Android. It's using an API called Share Element Transition. And the idea is that you reuse an element, like in this case, this particular contact, to transition to the user to the next navigation, like providing more details and all of that. And so this is how you make seamless experience. And so would it be nice if we were able to achieve the same kind of experience on the web, especially with an MPA? The good news is that it's still early days, but with the help of the broader community, we think we've found a way to deliver this kind of user experience on the web. It's an early API that we call Polos, and we gave a teaser during last year's CDS, and we also showed off our vision for how we want to take this further at I/O this year. And so we've heard a lot of feedback from partners, and they are super excited about this API. And the good news is that the team made a lot of progress. And so we are very close to announce an origin trial for the same origin use case. And so I'm going to walk you through the whole Polo API. Okay, before I explain the API, let me briefly explain the key concept behind Polos. So Polo is all about enabling better navigation on the web. In the early days, all the navigation were done through simple links, right? The problem with simple links is that they're not inherently appealing, and the friction of navigating to a page is always going to get in the way, right? It's not a great user experience. Then snippets came around, right? Like you see that a lot on like search page and all of that. It's still a link. It's like more appealing because it does have like a nice visual, it provides more details, but overall this is not a much better user experience. Like first of all, the information could be out of date, and it's still going to be a high friction of like a navigation, right? Then after that, what we have, and so the friction of navigation is still there, right? It doesn't really change the user experience itself. Okay. And this is where Polos come in. It's kind of like an iframe, except that you can navigate into it. It might be hard to imagine, but maybe this is like a better visual for it. Think of it of like, it's like a frame that you can open and cross over. All right, I think that's enough metaphor for now. Let's take a look at what this actually looks like in practice. So for Polos, for same origin use case, is soon going to be available as an origin trial, so you will be able to play with it in a couple of months, hopefully. And just like any other HTML element, you can use it directly with the Polo tag, or you can also like use JavaScript to insert a Polo in your document. And I'm going to show you how you can use this and what you can create with it. So let's say you have a page like foo.html, all blue, like super nice with blue background. Clearly, this was designed by a cat, right? I'm not the designer. But that's going to be enough for us to explain the basics of Polos. And then you have another page probably designed by the same cat. Bar.html, pretty similar to foo, but with different color, and so on. So we'll use those two pages to show what you can do with Polo. First, before you do anything, you should check that the Polo API is supported, because by now, like given this presentation, you should know that the internet is powered by cats, and you don't want to mess up with cats, right? So you don't want to create a user experience that only works in like a specific browser. You want to be nice and offer a user experience that works everywhere. And so you can check if Polo is available by checking this Polo element in the window object. So do that first to understand whether or not you can use it, and if you can't, just rely on the current user experience that you have today. Next, let's create a Polo element by calling this API, document.createElement. And then we can set the document that we want to use for the Polo, in this case, the bar.html, the yellow page. You can also add some style to it. And then finally, you can append it to the main page, in this case, foo.html. And so there you go, you have bar.html embedded in the main page. You can also check in DevTool that this is actually another document that is being embedded. It's not just like a visual or like a canvas, whatever. It's the actual document is there. Yeah. You can style the element as you want. Like in this case, I just made a preview of it. Like it's a smaller version of the document. I'm using position fixed, and so on. And so none of that is super exciting. I mean, like you can embed document within documents. That's kind of like not new. And this is where Polos actually shine. With this API that's specific to Polo, you can do very fancy things. So this API is called Activate. And essentially, it's a function that lets you navigate into the page that was already rendered, right? And this is how you can create instant navigation. Let's see how that works. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to add a click event listener so that when the user touch the bar.html element, I can call the activate function. Okay, and when I do that, you can see that the top-level window navigation happens, and you magically navigate into bar.html instantly, right? Without any white loading screen whatsoever. This is an MPA, right? With an SPA, you could do that very easily, but with an MPA, you can't do that today. It's not possible. And if you pay very close attention, you can see that the URL is actually changing, right? Those are two different pages, right? And this is super important because you don't have to reinvent all of that navigation and like state management. So as you can see, Polo already makes loading disappear. You don't need to wait for the page to render anymore because it's already rendered in the Polo. Isn't that great? Like, can I get a round of applause? Like, this is amazing, no? All right, woohoo. So we did make loading disappear, and maybe I could just end my talk right there and we can have lunch. But I mean, like, the target experience that we wanted is quite different, right? If you look at this, this is going way too fast. It's kind of confusing. It's kind of like one of those movies that like are super hard to follow because they would cut to like a different scene and you lost the plot. Like it's not easy to understand what is going on, especially if you are looking at it and you are not doing the interaction, right? And what I want is something more like this, where there's a sense of like there is a transition happening, like I understand that the app is reacting to what I'm doing, and so like is that it? Like just like Polo, is that it? Is that just like the activate function? The good news is that Polo has nothing to do with animation, right? And I think it's actually a good thing because I don't think an API should be in a business of defining rigid user experience. Like today, like carousel UI are fancy, but maybe in 2 years from now, this will be like old news and people will have found different ways to do things. And so I think it's actually better that we let you design the kind of like transition and API, transition that makes sense for your product and your users. So let's see if we can improve our demo. So we can start by embedding the Polo just like we did to show a preview of the page. And then instead of like activating right away, what if we were, for instance, to bring back the scale to 100%, right? You would have this like zoom in effect. And so it's more intuitive of like, oh, yes, I touched this thing. This is now becoming the new page. And so, by the way, like just notice that here, The animation is still going on. I'm still on foo.html. I need to call the activate method in order to truly navigate to the page that we want to go to. All right, so as I mentioned, like Polos has nothing to do with animation. And so you can always animate the Polo to make the transition smooth. You could use like existing APIs that we have today. It could be keyframes, it could be CSS animation, it could be driven by JavaScript. Like pick whatever you prefer. In this particular case, I'm going to use CSS transition. So you can see that when the user clicks, instead of like calling activate right away, I'm going to do a fancy animation. And so in this particular case, what I'm doing, is essentially I'm slightly translating the page and bringing back the scale to 100% with a transformation that lasts for 400 milliseconds. So not too slow, not too fast, just to give you a sense that this is the page becoming the full view again. Okay, when the CSS transition ends, you will get a transition end event. And so that's very useful because you could, for instance, show a very simple version of the page while it's in the preview. And when it gets activated, then you can go crazy and load all the rest, right? You can like use JavaScript and like make it as easy as you want. And so that's where you would do it. And then eventually, yes, you can call the Polo activate method so that you transition the user to this new page. And so this is how like an instant navigation can be done with Polo, despite being an MPA. Okay, this looks much better, right? But what if I don't want to force my users to navigate away? Okay, you might be wondering, like, what's the point of that, right? But I swear this is going to be useful, so bear with me. So beside Activate, Polo has another powerful API called Adopt Predecessor. As you can tell from the name, after being activated, you can use this API to retain the page that activated you, right? This is the predecessor page. It's the page you would go back to if you were to press the back navigation button, right? Let's see how you can use this in our demo. So first of all, you can listen to Polo Activate event. And so this is where you would check whether bar.html got activated. And the interesting thing here is that this event comes with the Adopt Predecessor function, right? And so you can use that to retain the page that activated you. And you can also append it into the document itself. And so what I've done here is I built something that looks like this, right? There is bar, adopting foo, activating foo, foo adopting bar, bar activating, and then so on and so on and so on, right? So you can create this like interesting loop of things, right? Like sure, it's kind of like pointless, like it's kind of like funny, like this cat, right? But there are more interesting ways to put that in practice. So let's look at an example that a partner of us built for us. So this example is an exploration from Yahoo in the US. They are using Adopt Predecessor to smooth out the user experience of reading breaking news. So like as the name implies, when a breaking news happens, you're probably doing something else. And so if there was a link at the top, you might be wondering, I was about to do like read my email or something, right? And so you might not want to click on that link because today you're going to be navigated away and you will lose your context. That's not a great user experience. But with Polos, you can design an experience that retains the context the user was just like behind it, and let the user quickly go back to whatever they were doing after they're done reading the news. So this is like a more practical use of this API. All right, isn't that neat? Okay, I can sense that people are like starting to getting it, right? And so I really wish that after this talk, you go play with it. It's available behind the flag. You can already build interesting demos with it. But before you do, I want to make sure that you are aware that there are things to care about when you use it, right? So first of all, as I mentioned, Polo does not come with any animation. And so it means that it's up to you to do great animation. It's up to you to make sure that you maintain a 60 frames per second, and that you make sure that the animation is going to work well on low-end devices. Maybe you want to do something different. And so like typical advice would be some things like sticking to the transition and opacity properties. Those tend to be hardware accelerated, right? There are things like that they need to be aware of. You can also use will change to make sure that browser knows ahead of time what you are going to animate. And then finally, if you are doing the JavaScript approach, you should use request animation frame, right? That's the right way to do animation with JavaScript. So just basics, nothing specific to Polo, but still good to remember that this is a thing. All right, next, accessibility. So in time for the origin trial, we want to make sure that we get this right. So there's going to be, Polo is going to have accessibility features built into it, but because it comes with typically transition animation, you want to make sure that you cater to the needs of people who don't want too fancy, crazy animation. And so for that, you will use the media query called prefer reduce motion. And in that case, what I've done is I made the transition less in your face, right? It's like a weaker one. And last but not least, this is a very powerful element, but don't overdo it. Don't put polos for everything on your page, right? It's not going to work. And so you could use, for instance, intersection observer to limit the amount of polos you have on the page at once, right? Only have one for the element that is in the view. If it's out of view, just get rid of it. That kind of stuff, right? Yeah. The other thing you should do also, you should try to get a sense of whether the user is going to click on that link, and you can design UX that makes it more likely. So, if you don't know if the user is going to click on the link, maybe it's not a good idea to put a polo behind it because it's going to be heavy on the device. All right. If there is any lesson to take from this overview of Polo, is that Polo is very simple by design. It's not meant to get in your way of them in terms of creativity. And to give you some ideas to explore, I have a few UX patterns and partners demo to show off. So let's take a look. So this one is the one we showed last year at CDS. I think it's still a great one. It's essentially when you know for sure where the user is going to go next. In this particular case, this is a Manga Viewer. And we work with Hatena to build this demo. And you can see that they render the next chapter in a Polo at the end of the current chapter, right? And it is an MPA. And so you can see this is a very seamless way of getting user to go to the next chapter. No loading time whatsoever. This is very fancy. All right, another explanation for Farfetch, which is an online luxury fashion retail platform based in the UK. So their goal was to use Polo to smooth the transition on their campaign landing page. And they are also using a processor to quickly get you back to where you started. So this is a very fancy user experience as well. Right, second UX pattern, this one is designed to smooth out navigations between a list of items. So typically an e-commerce website where you have tons of possible items the user might want to check. What's happening here is that off the screen there is a Polo that is rendering a skeleton UI for providing the details page of the product, right? And then when user clicks on an item, we reuse this image so that you can provide something visually appealing right out of the gate. And then you tell the Polo, hey, go fetch details for this item. And so this is how you would fill up this, for instance, product details, information, price, and so on. So this was just a demo, but this is actually being put in practice by our partners. So this one is done by Yahoo Japan PayPay Mall team. You can see that they are using the same pattern, except that they have a different transition, a zoom in, zoom out, very fancy transition happening here. And this is an MPA, right? But it really looks like an SPA. Let's try to squeeze one more UX pattern. So this one is about providing a more intuitive way of browsing, consuming content. And my colleague Yusuke, who I did the talk with at CDS, called this speed browsing. And like the one we are showing on the slide, as your user reach the end of the article, you can pre-render the next one, and the user can drag it over the current navigation to complete the navigation, right? So it's a new way of consuming content. It's very fancy. Instead of tapping on the link and waiting, you can just do a very seamless transition between different products. This is kind of similar to that. So eBay is also exploring Polos. And what they are doing is, instead of having you go to a search page and tons of product, they have this very fancy carousel UX. If you want to check more details, you can click on it, and then it will call the activate method for the Polo. And so you navigate to the page that has all the details of that product. One more. This one is done by Yahoo Japan News, and they actually built a whole new experience around Polos. So that's also something you can do. You can have your legacy product with the current navigation, and you can build a whole new experience with Polo. So in this case, this is like a stack of highly visual cards that the user can swipe through. And if you swipe to the left, you can deep dive into the article, right? And all of those things are pages. It's an MPA. And yet there is absolutely no loading to be seen on the screen. So a very fancy user experience. And the best part is that you can actually go to this link here, turn on a flag on Chrome Canary, and see it for yourself. And if you go view source, you can probably like find out how they actually did it. So that's pretty neat. All right, there is a lot more example I could show, but we'll be probably running over time, even if I have 40 minutes. So I would like to thank all our partners for the feedback we got so far, all the amazing demo that they built. So thanks to them. All right, so have you seen Polo really like allows you to build a very compelling user experience? But is it really enough? Like, should I just end my talk right there? The answer is that while it's true that like Polo can help you build like great user experience, there is no guarantee that users are going to find it, right? Especially if most of the users already have like build preference in terms of how they want to use their device. It takes a lot of efforts to discover new things and try new things. So what can you do in that case? Essentially two things. The first one is that you should try to lower the amount of efforts it takes for someone to try something new. And the second one is lower the amount of effort it actually takes for trying something new, but ideally to zero, right? You should make it very like low friction for people to try something new. And so I'm going to show you a bunch of like products that we have going on to help on that front. First, let's start with a way to make the first navigation instant. Like for instance, what if by the time you got on the bus or the train for your commute, you already had like readily available content on your device? Wouldn't that be amazing? Especially here, like the network can be flaky, sometimes it's slow. That's pretty interesting, right? I see some smile in the audience, so maybe I probably hit a common pain point. And so there is an API that we call Periodic Background Sync that is designed to enable that sort of use case. So with that, not only the experience will be instant, but it will also be reliable because it's on the device, right? If you don't even have a connection, it's already on the device, so you can just enjoy your content without having to worry about it. And some of you may wonder, okay, well, why loading things in advance is important? And there are a couple of reasons for that. The first one is that a fast mobile connection is not always guaranteed. Even markets like France or the US or Japan, you can see that 4G is not always 4G. Right? There are still a lot of people on 3G, or maybe they actually have 4G, but it's slow. So this is not like something that is like going to happen anytime soon. And in India, you can see that less than half of the 4G connection is actually 4G. It's more kind of 3G. And there are a few reasons for that. I think it's pretty interesting to see how like the price of data coming down drove usage. And you can see that if you're like me and you wake up at 4 a.m., then you're going to have a great time, right? The speed is amazing. But after that, it just goes down and down and down. So like throughout the day, the speed you will get is going to get worse. And so this is showing 4G in India in a couple of like big cities, right? The other thing is, like, besides fetching things in advance because the network is not always reliable, you can think of it as an opportunity to re-engage the users. Either it's like to provide fallback content if the fallback they want doesn't load, and there are a few more things I want to talk about later. All right, so periodic background sync. Let's see how this can be used. So this example is an exploration done by Ghana, by Times Internet. I'm sure you all know what Ghana is. And this is very fascinating, right? Because PBS is a clear API that makes sense for a product like Ghana, because you don't want to buffer while you are listening to music if the connection goes down, right? So you can prefetch ahead of time new content, or like the content that you know the user is going to listen to during the day, and provide a great user experience this way. Another example from Japan, this time also by Hatena. For them, they want to use periodic background sync to proactively prefetch the new magazine or the new edition of a magazine or a manga, because those can be very large, like it's 100 megs at time. And the thing to know about Japan is that more than 50% of the user only has 3 GB of data per month. After that, they get throttled to 2G speed, right? Think about it. I don't know about you, but on my phone, if I check the whole data usage, including Wi-Fi, I have 70 GB of data per month, right? So just relying on mobile data is not going to cut it. And so you can use PBS to shift, like fetching all of that heavy data when the user is at home on Wi-Fi, so that when they get on their commute, the experience is going to be amazing, right? And until the end of the month. All right, let's take a look at the API. So with PBS, you will be able to register a sync event for your service worker. You can specify your own tag name, just like background sync. And in this case, I'm registering an event called Sync Amazing Cats. You can put whatever name you want, so you can have multiple of them. There is also a mean interval option. So this will be the mean interval between the different sync, right? If you don't want to update more than every day, this is how you would do it. And once the event is registered, the browser will regularly fire a periodic sync event to the service worker. And this is where you could run your own logic to fetch the content and put it in the cache storage, or maybe it's updating application settings, application code as well. So you can do whatever you want there. It doesn't have to be about content. It can be anything. All right. And the way it works is that Chrome is not going to fire the periodic sync event for everything, because that would not scale. It's going to look at how engaged your users are with your app, right? And it will decide the frequency at which this event is going to fire based on that. The other thing that we do today, and it's open to feedback, this API is only available for installed PWA at this moment. All right. Okay, so when websites can proactively make new content really available ahead of time, it results in instant, readable, and great user experience. What's not to like about this? Well, the problem is that if you do all of that work, but no one notices, it's kind of pointless and actually wasteful, right? But to me, it feels like a discovery opportunity. So we understand that creating all of those great user experience is hard, and so we've been thinking of ways to try to reward that effort. In particular, we think we can help you find new users or re-engage with your existing users. In this particular case, what you're looking at right there are exploration of UX that we have in Chrome. So this is the new tab page, and you can see that we are going to tell you that you have content available even if you are offline. So we are going to start with offline, but you can imagine that as more content is available on the device, we want to make that available for any situation. It doesn't really matter if it's offline or not. And so if you go there, you would see there is a new UX that is going to come in soon, explore offline with content that is available on the device. And so the way it works is that you will need to tell us what's available, right? We can't just guess. And so there is an API called Content Indexing API that is designed to help to make that a thing. So again, to use this API, you need to have a service worker. And at least a subset of your pages need to work offline. And so what you can do here, so you can add URL by using this registration.index.add. You can add URL elements that are available on the device. So first of all, you will need a unique ID so that you can design, you can specify which part of the content is available. Then you have to specify what is the URL to launch this piece of content so that when the user taps on the tile, it gets directed to the right page. This also has to work offline, obviously. Then you can put some additional data, like what is the title, what is the description, icons, images, and also some category. Is that like a music? Is it a video? Is it like a page? And so on and so on. All right. And obviously, in addition to adding, you can also like list what's available and delete everything, or like specific entries, so that you can manage what's available on the device, so that what we show to user is current and up to date. Okay, so having a collection of content ready to go is quite convenient, right? Especially in markets like here, where the condition is not always great. But I think we can take this a notch further. So what if, for instance, we could have a self-contained piece of content, or even an app that you could share with your friend or distribute it in different ways, instead of like just link, right? If I give you a link and your connection is bad, it's not going to be useful, right? But if I were able to share with you an app or a piece of content, you could make that, you could use that right away, right? And so we've been working on something that is going to help here. And so for a self-contained piece of content or like app to exist, there needs to be a way for you to package all the resources it needs, right, in a convenient format that you can distribute. So with the help of the community, we've been working on this thing that for a long time we've been calling it bundle HTTP exchange. It's not very like marketing like savvy in terms of like naming. And so we decided to rename it in WebBundle, which hopefully is easier to understand what this is about. So as the name implies, it is designed for the web and allows you to bundle resources, so like font, JavaScript, HTML, images. You can package all that up in one file, and you can serve that over HTTP, peer-to-peer, on a USB storage. It's just a file, right? It's kind of like a zip for the web, if you think so. All right, so we have a bunch of things available today. We have a command line interface that you can install to generate package. The best way to try it is to just grab a RAR file from DevTools and use that as the input to that tool. It's going to produce a web bundle that you can use today on Canary if you enable that flag. We are also exploring a JavaScript implementation of WebBundle, and we just read the very first draft of an NPM module for that called WBN. Okay, we are still in the middle of like brushing up the library, so if you have feedback on like, is it easy to use, or there anything missing, please don't hesitate. All right, as I said, the distribution format enables interesting use case. In this example, I can share procs.app, right? We've talked about it. It's available in a web bundle format in this case. I can share it with a friend through like a file transfer app, maybe share it or other options. Even if I'm on plane, like it doesn't really matter. I can share with you and you will get it for sure. The other thing that's exciting is that because everything is on the device, the loading experience is going to be much faster by design, right? So let's do a very like simple comparison. On the left, you have WebBundle and the regular web on the right. So boom, there you go, I'm launching the WebBundle. It's already done. The web on, this is on 3G, it's taking its time, it's not done yet. And then finally it's done, right? So like clearly, this is amazing. It just works extremely well. All right, so on this clear victory of like upcoming innovation, I want to wrap up this talk and like let you go to the lunch. And so today we've talked about 4 APIs. The first one, Polos, is designed to enable instant and seamless navigation. It's going to be available soon in an origin trial for the same origin use case. And hopefully next year we can talk about cross-origin use case. We've seen tremendous support from web developers. And your interest, like building those exploration, like telling us, did we get it right? That's going to be very useful for us to reach back to other browser vendors to make the case that this is useful and that it's going to deliver great user experience on the web. So please play with it. Periodic background sync. So this one is to make content readily available on the device. It's already available as an origin trial. We've seen, as you've seen, like we have a couple of demos already. We've seen interest from web developers. And again, like we need your feedback to help us engage with other browser vendors to make the case for it. Content indexing, this is to make it clear that there is interesting things available on the device to our users. This is going to be available soon in origin trial, hopefully Chrome 80. This is very like brand new, so we want to hear from you. Did we get the API right? Do you have any concerns about it? And so on and so on. And then finally, WebBundle. So this is very bleeding edge. This is not yet available as an origin trial. but this is a convenient distribution format for content and apps, opening new ways to distribute your app and content. It could be sharing between friends. Maybe you can incentivize that. It could be discovering your app at an off-site event. You scan a QR code and boom, you get it. So we are looking for a lot of use case, a lot of feedback, because this is a lot of work. This is not an easy API. So please play with it. Tell us how you feel about the use case, what sort of things we should add to it. So we've seen a lot of interest from developers around specific use case, but I think there is a lot more we could do with it. The sad news is that there is some concerns, but not for the use case I talked about today. It's a different set of use case. If you want to learn more, come talk to me. But for the set of use case I talked about today, it's not that bad. Edge, on the other hand, is totally on board. They understand what this is, why this is great for the web to have. And so hopefully we can convince the other browser vendors that this should be a thing as well. All right, and with that, I'm done. I actually fit the whole talk in 40 minutes. So if you want to learn more, go to this link. There is links to all explainers, hands-on article, more details. And also come talk to me after the break at the office hours and so on. Thank you.